Welcome to the MuseCast, where we squeeze every last drop of inspiration out of Sunday's sermon.
Now we can go.
Yep.
Dan Kent, Shawna, Boren, welcome to the MuseCast, everyone. We are trying a little something different. This is just a little behind the scenes, right, Dan?
That's right.
We're just trying a little something different and a different platform, and it does a countdown. And so Dan's like, we don't even need the fingers. And I'm like, I can't go unless we get the fingers.
You know what I really want is I want one of those clapper boards. You know, like action. That's what I really want. But
that would be so cool.
I'll do that.
That would be so cool. Yeah. This is your action. All right. Well, welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Quick question, Dan, before we get rolling into... I forget the title. Fireproof
Treasure. Yeah.
I did it. I'm getting old. I just can't remember things. How is your bracket? And I say bracket because I know you don't like super do a bracket, but have you been paying attention enough to even know
not even a little bit. I've been paying attention to the Timberwolves a little bit, but college basketball.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
You know, when you've got a good team, so
I know.
How are those Lakers doing anyway, huh?
I don't want to talk about it. That is not where the Lord has us today.
Yeah.
He has us talking about March Madness and Duke. So Duke is in the Final Four. Kansas, Villanova.
Wait a minute, doesn't Duke
the fourth team?
Doesn't Duke just start in the Final Four? Don't they get like an honorary?
Pretty much.
Because they're there every year, so.
It feels like it. And so this is Coach K's last year. He's retiring, and so it's kind of like, come on, let's get it done for Coach K. All right.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. There's your sports update, folks.
Hey,
you're welcome.
Speaking of getting old, did you know it's my birthday today?
Dan Kent! I am the worst partner co-host ever.
No, of course not. I mean, it's not. When you have as many birthdays as I've had, it doesn't really matter. But
oh my, you guys, MuseCast, it's Dan Kent's birthday. We need all the fanfare and celebrations.
That might be the best birthday card I've ever gotten right there. So that's good.
Just a live action birthday card right there for you. Okay, Dan Kent, I am going to make this up to you in such a great way. I just need to get the brain percolating. I just need to get more caffeine in me, and then it's coming. But happy birthday, sir!
Thank you.
So glad that you were born.
Me too. It's been a good ride.
Have you had a favorite birthday of your few? Of the 22 or so that you've had?
Yeah.
A favorite?
You know, I don't really have a favorite. I'll be honest. I really like. I like just living, and I just I have a routine every day where I write in the morning, and I got all my stuff. I got like a routine, and a lot of times things like birthdays and Christmas and holidays, they mess with my routine, and so I like just my routine, But what we do is we do go out and have a good meal, and tonight I'm gonna have fajitas, and I'm excited for that. So,
yes.
It'll be good.
Where are you getting fajitas from?
I don't know the name of the place, but it's in Maplewood here, and it's a Mexican restaurant, and hopefully they'll have horchata, which is very good. So,
what type of fajitas do you get?
I get non-vegan fajitas. I get usually.
Okay, I was gonna say
chicken fajitas.
How do you do that?
Yeah, okay. I stray from the path on my birthday. So.
You do. Okay, well, in the future, Dan, if you want to stay true to the way God intended, you could have mushroom.
Yeah, that's good.
Fajitas.
Well,
that would be good.
But the problem is like restaurants, they don't have those options, And when they do,
I know.
It's usually like canned mushrooms, and it's gross. It's not good. But like if you have you can like saute mushrooms, and it tastes like steak. I mean, you can make mushrooms taste delicious. So, yeah.
I know. You need to go to Nacho Mama's in Stillwater. I'm not sponsored by them. I just love and they've got really good mushroom fajitas, and they're like the strips, and it's like almost like the way they season it and everything.
That sounds good. I'll have to do that.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. So,
okay.
Well, good. All right.
You ready?
I'm ready.
World famous Surmery coming up on. I forgot the title already again.
Fireproof Treasure. Although,
okay, thank you.
Although I need to say that I liked my alternative title better, Apocalyptic Prophets. That was my favorite.
I did too.
You know.
I did too. You sent a few little options, and I picked 3 of them that I really liked. Yep. And Dan, they didn't go with any of our 3.
Nope. No,
they're lost.
So we have 0 power in this business of.
We do. Yeah, so. Hence the reason why I can't remember this title.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
It's not catchy enough.
Yeah.
All right, sermon time for a really good sermon.
It was a great sermon.
Not a catchy title.
No, not a catchy title, but a great sermon. Greg, we're still talking about these verses about storing up treasure on earth versus storing up treasure on heaven. You can't serve 2 masters, and so Greg is still talking about mammon and the kind of the philosophical forces that mammon have over our lives. And so this week he was talking about looking at our relationship with mammon sort of in an eschatological framework, which is just the fancy way of saying what is the big picture here? Where are we going with all of this? And so he kind of advocated for thinking about our day-to-day life within the context of this path that we're on toward being judged by God. And so that raises a couple questions. First of all, it's not like he didn't really get into like what is that judgment like, other than he looked at some verses that talked about how what you do now matters later on, and the how we invest our time into our relationships, into who we are becoming, will matter later on when we see God. And then he wrestled with a philosophical question, which is, if we are saved by grace, why is there all this talk of rewards? And what his answer was is just that. Is the work that we're doing. The reward is who we are becoming. And who we become shapes how we perceive everything that we experience. And so the more Christ-like we are, I think the more rewarding our experiences will be. He didn't say that. I'm saying that. It's adding to his sort of sermon. And then he talked about a few parables, which I thought were really great. He talked about how mammon sort of deceives us and pulls us in and kind of robs or takes our devotion hostage, and that takes our devotion away from God. And he talked about what does it mean to be rich, and how we tend to kind of index our understanding of wealth based on where we're at. So we think of people who are have a little bit more than us, they're the ones who are rich. But in reality, most of us, historically speaking, are pretty rich. And so a lot of Jesus' warnings really do apply to us. And then, he looked at a couple really great parables, and I'm so glad. The one in particular that he looked at was Luke 16, verses 1 through 9. And this is the parable of the shrewd manager. And this guy basically kind of screws over the guy that he's working for, but he gets praised for being shrewd. And it's such a bizarre parable, but Greg does a really great job of kind of showing what Jesus' point is there in that becoming... It shows the prioritization of thinking eschatologically, thinking big picture, thinking down the road, and how we can definitely... And Jesus will talk about this in just a couple verses. We can definitely think about the future too much, but what he's saying here is that we can also think of the future too little. And it's important to think of our daily life in the context of where we're going and in the context of what God is doing in the world. So there's a lot of other stuff that he said in there. He moved around, and there's a lot of good stuff. But the end kind of is that get to know God now. Get to know God now. Pursue Christ-likeness now, because the warning and the promise is that it matters. The things that we do in our day-to-day life matter. And they not only matter to God's story, but they will matter to us personally as well. So what did you think of the sermon?
Yeah, I was talking, Scott and I were talking with a few friends last night. I told you we have that group that we're in with some friends, and it's a gathering group where we process the sermons. And so we were sharing last night, and I was talking about how I really do, I like the fact that we at our church, we do talk about character and what it means to follow Jesus, and that it is more than just saying a prayer, signing a card, and then you go on about your merry way. That like on earth as it is in heaven is like a real thing for us. And I love that we teach that and that we circle back to that so frequently. A couple of things that stood out to me. One is silly, of course, because there's always something silly, but I had never thought of Pharaoh as coveting air conditioning. Never crossed my mind before.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to do this summer? I'm
going
to turn my air conditioner on, and I'm going to step outside, and I'm going to say, "Eat it, Pharaoh." That's what I'm going to say.
That's right. Take that.
That's right.
So the question that I loved and that I've been thinking through, that I thought was just like, it just nailed the point home is what are you doing with your salvation? Like, our salvation is a gift, and it is a foundation of which we built upon. And I've never fully understood, not in judgment, but I just don't understand those who have the foundation and just think they're good. Like nothing else matters, because when we get to heaven is when all that'll be sorted out. And so it doesn't matter how you live your life now, or the kind of character you have now, or how you treat others now. I've never really understood that. And I don't think people necessarily say that out loud, but you can kind of see that in lives being lived and just the way people talk and act and think. And so that was just interesting to me. What are we doing with our salvation? What am I doing with my salvation? What am I building upon this foundation that I was given by grace? And then I had a thought that I want to pick your brain about. So this is me. Like, I'm like Greg. I'm going all over the place. But I did have the thought about when we're talking about riches and being careful and mindful not to just store up for ourselves treasures for the here and now. How does that correlate, or what do those who live in the health and wealth gospel mentality, like how do you think, Dan, that those two things come together for them?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think if I were into that prosperity gospel sort of theology, that would be a real challenge for me. I don't know how I would reconcile that verse. I think that Greg might be talking about that this weekend. So yeah, Ooh. we might get his kind of more robust answer to that. Okay. I will say this though.
Okay.
I will say this though, that I think that a lot of the motivation that I've seen behind the health and wealth prosperity gospel tends to be related to this assumption that wealth is an indicator that God is blessing you, and I just think that's I think that's misguided. Personally, I'm not convinced that that's a good indicator for God's blessing of you. I just think that it's a very narrow criteria of what it means to be blessed, because God can bless us in so many profound ways. And I think for me personally, like having a sense of humor. Not that I'm funny, but like
you are funny.
But I laugh a lot, and I find things funny. And to me, I consider that just such a profound blessing that I am able to find humor and laugh at life, even though life is really hard. And but I can still find that. And I think that I don't know if I would say that. If I had like enough to buy a solar-powered yacht, maybe I would prefer that. But other than that, having a sense of humor is just so valuable to me. And so like I could be dirt poor and still be laughing, and that's great. I would rather have that than $100,000 or whatever. And so that's where I kind of drift away from the prosperity gospel stuff.
Well, it sounds like then maybe we can circle back and have some more conversations about that.
But in the
coming
Shawna,
weeks,
what?
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows what he's going to talk about?
Who the heck knows?
Yeah, it could be totally different. So.
Speaking of you being funny, I told Scott last week, I was like, I'm half expecting for one of these days on the MuseCast for Dan to go, when I worked at NASA, I did, because you're always like, when I was at this or when I was at that, I'm always finding out these like random, surprising jobs that you have held. Yeah. And I'm just, it's kind of like a game. Like, what's he going to reveal?
Yeah, I have just barely dipped my toe in all the jobs that I've done. So I have a reservoir of jobs that I've done to bring up at the right moment. So that's
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So you guys be tuning in for that.
I'll say this. All of those jobs and all of those things, they were just setting me up for my favorite job, which is being a pastor at Woodland Hills Church. So
that's right. That's right.
I'm being serious
creme
too.
De la creme.
I'm being serious too.
No doubt.
So what a blessing! It's such a blessing to serve this community, and it's great.
I agree. I think if we're gonna briefly just camp out on the blessings thing, it is such a joy and a treasure to be a part of this community and to work alongside these kingdom people and to engage with folks the way that we're able to. It is really a joy. Yeah. So
let me ask you
that I consider a blessing.
Let me ask you. So I talked about the sense of humor that I have, like my ability to find things funny, and seeing that as like an indicator of God's blessing for me. What do you see in your life that's not monetary that you would say, man, that's a real great blessing? It's something that you can't buy. It's something that you just have.
Yeah, that's easy for me. It's my family. It's Scott and our kids. It's our the community we have. It's people. It truly is. We've both shared bits and pieces of our history and our backstory, but many folks know there was some tough times as a kid for me prior to getting adopted, and I didn't always know if I could ever have a family or if I would know what it felt like to be in a healthy, loving family. And so having the relationship with my husband and our 4 kids and just the way, and they're older, right? So they're all teenagers and one's in college. And so it's in that fun part of, yes, still parenting, but also relating on a more friend level many times too, and just seeing how they grow. That is just it for me. Yeah. I feel incredibly blessed by the people in my world that I get to love. Yeah. Honestly, like hands down. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Hugest blessing.
Yep. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
One other thing that I was struck by in this sermon, and you said it too, is that parable. I can honestly say, if I had ever heard a teaching on that parable before, it didn't stick, because that was one of those that I was just like, I don't know what that is. And so it was really cool to hear Greg kind of unpack that a bit and just offer that as a possibility for us to consider. It was really fascinating. And so I think to take all of those verses that we looked at and to talk about all of the things and all the places that Greg went, we have much to think through and ponder for our lives. And I think that's good, right? Yeah. Like I really believe sermons, yes, they're meant to encourage us and to uplift us, but also like we do around here, it calls us to think and reflect and see like, wow, what does that mean for me Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and I love that we do that, I think, pretty well. No,
I agree. And that parable too, it's and that interpretation I think is really great. It's almost like, it's an absurd example of how important planning for your future is. Just like that's got to be the top priority. And basically Jesus is basically saying, be a pirate for your future. Like who cares about anything if it doesn't relate to how and who you are becoming in God? Then it just doesn't matter. Like don't don't spend any time worrying about things that don't matter to this goal, to this mission. And I agree. And I don't think I've ever heard it in a sermon. I think most people probably just tiptoe around it. Like, I don't know what Jesus is getting at there. Oh. So
that was a weird one. Yeah, exactly. Well, Dan, let's just help people a little bit. For those who maybe haven't thought about their future and the coming kingdom and what they're doing today, what they're building today, will either be refined or burned up. Like, how can we help people maybe do that paradigm shift so that, not that they're paranoid, but that they're just mindful? Mm-hmm. Like Greg said, like about choices that we make and ways in which we act and ways in which we treat people. Like, does it look like Jesus on the cross, or is it more for selfish gains? Like, how can we help people without guilt, but maybe a little challenge to begin to wrap their brain around that thought process?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. I think, when you hear this, that whatever you create is going to be tested by fire, and if you haven't really done anything good, you're still going to be saved. You'll just be saved as one who has escaped through the fire. And you can listen to that and think about all the things that might get burned up, in which case you might be concerned and worried or whatever. Or you can look at that and think of the things that survive the fire, and then you can be hopeful. And you can see this parable not as... It is a warning, but it's also indicating this is where your best opportunity is. Look, you have 24 hours in a day. You got to sleep, so subtract that. But you have a certain amount of hours every day, and how are you going to invest it? This is an opportunity that God gives us and says, look, here's one opportunity. Everything that you do every day is contributing to who you are, and some of those things are going to survive this fire, and you're going to be able to keep them in your eternal. So listening to it as an opportunity, I think, is key. The other thing I would say is, what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh yeah, a lot of it just, I think, has to do a lot with how we understand things and how we perceive reality. And throughout the whole Bible, you have all of these times when it says that it talks about how we perceive God more through the lens of ourselves than seeing God as God really is. And we talk about this a lot here at Woodland Hills. And David said that to the wicked you show yourself shrewd, but to the faithful you show yourself pure. And so who we are affects how we perceive things. And I think that the afterlife is going to be a lot about that. And I've probably, one of my favorite analogies, and I've probably shared it already, and I'll probably share it again because I just like it so much. But it's my heaven is China analogy, and this is how it goes. It's imagine if you are you're a business executive, you're in sales, okay, and it's Friday, and you can't wait for the weekend, and you're going to have a barbecue, and you're so excited, and then the boss comes in, and there's just a few minutes left of the day, and right away you're just like, oh no, the boss needs something this weekend, I know it, and sure enough, the boss says, listen, Shawna, we have a new prospect who really wants to buy a lot of our product. They're in China, okay? So I need you to hop a plane this evening, go to China for the weekend, pitch them on Monday, and then you'll be back by Wednesday, okay? And so it's last minute, you need to go home and pack your bags now so you can get to China to do the sales pitch. So you go home, you quickly pack a bag, you get on the plane, and you're on the plane, you're flying to China, and there's this younger kid, he's like 22, sitting next to you on the plane, and he is just like so excited. And you ask him, you're like, you seem like you're excited, and he's like, oh, I'm so excited, and well, what are you doing in China that you're so excited about? And he tells you, since I was 10 years old, I've fallen in love with China, and I've learned everything about China. I've learned everything about, the geography, all of the different towns, the history. I learned how to speak Chinese, and I've just been waiting half my life to go there and actually experience it. And unfortunately, I have to come back on Wednesday, but I'm so excited to get my first taste of what it's like. So these two people are going to China for the same amount of time. One of these people are going to have a profoundly different experience of China than the other. The person who just goes for the sales presentation, they're going to be there for the same amount of time as the kid who has spent, half of his life getting ready and learning the language and learning the culture. But that kid is going to have such a profoundly deeper, richer experience of his time in China than the salesperson. And that's the opportunity that God gives us. God says, listen, you're going to be able to keep stuff as you go through the fire, as you get tested, as you are, assessed. Devote yourself to the things that are going to increase and improve your perception of China or heaven when you get there. And so in my mind, that's how I've always thought of it. How am I today preparing myself to enjoy eternity more and more and more? And that's through love relationships. That's through reconciling with people who have maybe wronged me. That's through learning how to look at my possessions in a more godly way. Learning how to control my emotions, all of those types of things. Humbling myself as much as possible. I end up humiliating myself. That's probably why I said that. But I'm trying to humble myself. Very different things. So
they are different.
Yeah. So that's my China heaven analogy, and it's been really helpful for me. So
I like the China heaven analogy. It almost, as you were landing that plane, sounded a bit like a nugget.
Yeah.
And I liked it. However, you don't get off the hook that easy.
That was like a 4-minute analogy.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I know. But I'm here to challenge you,
Right,
and I'm here to pull more from you than you think you have to offer. I will say, as we are rounding this conversation out, I would say my nugget is very similar to what you were saying there at the end of your analogy. And I just liken my relationship with Jesus, and trust me, I'm not perfect at it. Of course not. But hopefully I'm growing and continuing to grow, like always. But I liken it to any relationship to people that matter to me, people that I love. If I love someone, that relationship informs so much of what I do. I don't act isolated. I'm not removed from that relationship, but in fact those relationships inform many, if not most, of my decisions because of the love. And I feel like that's the way I desire for it, and I strive for it to be with Jesus, right? That because of his love for me and my love for him, that I would allow him and his love for me to inform the way in which I move about my space on this earth. Yeah. Don't always do it perfectly, but it matters. It's not just like we said in the beginning, it's not just a one-time, thankful for that grace, right. Got me through, and, check that box, we're good to go, see you on the flip side. No, this is like an ongoing, interactive relationship, and how beautiful that can be. Because guess what? In this world, we know this. We know it for a fact. We see it in scriptures. In this world, we will have trouble. But he has overcome the world. He is with us in that trouble. He comforts us when we mourn. He is a part of our joyful times. And I just think, like you said, what an experience we can have when we are living in such a way that we are aware to his presence. And we are mindful of his influence, and we allow that to flow through us. Wow,
that's awesome. That's beautiful. I don't know if I can add much to that. I think I'll probably just reiterate. I think what I would encourage people to do is to think about all of the things that you like about your life and the things that you like about yourself, and think about those things that you have as who you are, and maybe where you live or whatever, that if you were to get $10 million, let's say, in an inheritance, these are things that you wouldn't be able to buy. These are things that you just have, that you love, that you just cannot buy. And think about those things, because it's so easy in this world to feel inadequate and to feel lacking because you see all of the preposterous things that people buy and own, and you can feel like you're missing out. But boy, the more you get in touch with all of those treasures that you already have, the more you can resist envy and jealousy and all that kind of stuff. So I think that would be my nugget. So.
I like it, Dan. Really good stuff. Okay, in 30 seconds or less, and I'm going to ask you to do something that could totally be wrong.
All right.
Because we just don't know. So in 30 seconds or less, just give us a little sneak peek at what's to come. Like kind of wet everyone's whistle for what's coming up in the next few weeks in this series.
Yeah.
Knowing that Greg may take a turn here or there, but
yeah.
from what we know so far.
Yeah, so, a couple things. We got Easter and Good Friday coming up, so that's going to fall in here. But surrounding that, we have discussion on idolizing wealth versus idolizing poverty, and how Jesus is calling us to a third way. We're going to talk about the relationship between money and worry, and then we're going to just talk about worry and anxiety, and I think that will be sort of what wraps up the series. So.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
So you guys, you got to keep tuning in and then circle back.
Yep.
Come, be with us on Tuesdays as we continue the conversation. We really have a good time, and we thank you for all of your engagement. Have a great week, and we will see you next Tuesday.
Yep. See you later.